Today we're making a super cheap hard seltzer in multiple flavors. We're going to take you through all the steps needed to make this beverage, which turns out to be perfectly clear and quite fragrant. And we'll end it with a tasting. A lot of the time, hard seltzer is actually made with like vodka and flavorings and things like that. We actually wanted to ferment one, and we thought, well, you know what it is? It's basically just a lower ABV version of a sugar wine known as a kilju. So we're just gonna do a really basic kilju. We're gonna add flavorings, and we're gonna ferment it, and then we're gonna bottle it and carbonate it. And it's hard seltzer. I mean, simple, right? So the video's over, you don't have to, I'm just kidding. So
we're starting out with sugar.
And we're gonna use 3/4 of a pound of sugar. I'm aiming for like a 5% final ABV after carbonation of this. So that's why we're doing that. If you're curious how I got it, you know what? Gotta do some math with the calculator teacher said I would never have handy. So we know that when we carbonate, because of the amount of sugar we use, it's about half a point of ABV, like 0.5%. So that means if I want it to be 5 minus a half a point is 4.5. So 4.5, right? Oops, 4.5, not 45. 4.5 divided by 131.25 gives me 1.034. That means that is my target original gravity, okay? If I lost you, we have videos explaining all this stuff, but just work with me here. So 1.034. So that means if I know that sugar is 0.046 per pound in a gallon, and I need 0.034, it's less than a pound. Divide by 0.046 gives me 0.74 something. It was like 0.75. So I rounded it off to 0.75, and we're gonna use 3/4 of a pound of sugar. Sometimes close enough is close enough. 3/4 of a pound is 12 ounces. So we're gonna do 12 ounces. Pouring through a funnel, which was wet a few minutes ago, so hopefully it doesn't stick too much. There we go. So somebody made a comment the other day that got me thinking, and they were saying about the amount of sugar and honey that we're adding to things. And they made a comment about the yeast becoming diabetic or something. I just want to point out that this gets fermented, so the sugars don't stay, the alcohol does. So, yeah.
The yeasts eat the sugar.
Well, they don't eat it, they convert it. It's a chemical thing. They don't actually eat it.
They don't actually eat it?
They don't have mouths.
Oh.
They're single-celled creatures.
So they just absorb it and then transform it.
Mm-hmm. It's a conversion. It's a chemical conversion process.
It's fancy and schmancy.
Okay, and next, you know what? Let's just do this right. We're gonna add some Fermade O, which is a yeast nutrient. And we're using the one from North Mountain. I'm just gonna put in half a teaspoon, and I'm putting it right into this funnel because I know the water can rinse this funnel out anyway. So just drop it right in there. You know what, to make life easy? Should I throw the yeast in there too? No.
No.
You know why?
Because that amount of sugar
Could kill the yeast immediately. Just pop their cells. Yeah. So let's just pour some water in and rinse out the funnel at the same time. If you tip your funnel a little bit to the side like that, it breaks the seal and lets it pour through a lot easier. I'm just gonna go about halfway because at this point I want to start mixing this up.
Do you want the thumb saver bung?
I would like the thumb saver bung, please.
I must go locate the thumb saver bung.
So thumb saver bung, it's just a solid bung. That's all it is. It's a big joke, but it's just a solid bung. It helps so you don't have a hole in it. It's just a thing. And I'm just gonna shake the bejesus out of this now. And this does two things. What does it do, Derica?
First of all, it aerates the brew, meaning it's forcing the oxygen that was trapped in that vessel into the liquid solution. This is important at this stage of fermentation because yeasts require that additional oxygen in order to be fruitful and multiply.
What's the second thing it does?
The second thing it does is it creates a equal distribution of the sugars within the must. So when you take your hydrometer reading...
Mixes the sugars. That's it.
You get an accurate reading rather than a correct
Well,
reading.
yeah. That's true. If there was still solid sugar in the bottom, she's right. She just made it sound a lot nicer. I just mix it up. Probably add our yeast at this point, but I'm not going to quite yet. Add some more water. Whoops. Almost overflowed that. I just want to fill this up to the part that says 1 gallon on this 1 gallon fermenter. That way I know I'm getting a gallon. But I'm not going to do that quite yet because now we're going to add our yeast. For that, we're using Safe Ale SO4. Why? Well, it's an ale yeast. This is ale-like. And it's a good performer. It's a really good performer. Adam, one of our admins, uses it almost exclusively. And I have a very, very small cut on this one. I can't seem to get it
Well,
open.
you're going to use the rest of the packet, so you can just cut the
Am I
entire
going to use
top.
the whole thing?
You've been using this one, right? This is a partial?
Oh, it is a partial. All right, I guess I'm going to use the rest of this packet. They seem like they're larger packets somehow.
They are larger in size, but I don't know if they're larger.
It's 11.5 grams.
in volume. I don't know.
It's about half. Okay, I'm just going to use half a packet of SO4. And now, more water to rinse that in. Make all those yeasts fulfill their destiny. Get in your home. You too good for your home? Okay, we're right up to the 1 gallon mark. Those 4 or 5 yeasties that are in there, they just,
Too bad, so sad.
SOL, that's what I would say. And I'm gonna mix this up again because we just added more liquid to it. It's a little heavier now. That's why I do it when it's half full. It's lighter and it's easier to get oxygen into it. Now it's ready to go. So all we gotta do now is take gravity reading. As you recall, it should be about 1.035, 1.034, or something in that range. If I did everything correctly, it should be within a couple points of that. Dealing with biological, natural products here, you know, things can vary a little bit. Plus, did I measure the water exactly right? Who knows? Does it matter? No. But I do love it when a plan comes together. 1.034 on the nose.
Woohoo!
By the way, one thing we didn't mention, before you start, everything that you use should be sanitized. What do we use for sanitization?
The red bucket of sanitization! Yeah!
Let's try that one more time. And everything we use was sanitized in.
The red bucket of sanitization!
Which is literally a big party tub, like 15 gallons or so, filled with Star San, mixed to the manufacturer's suggestion. We have links to that stuff below. It's great. If you live in the UK and you can't get it, Milton's baby sanitizing stuff for baby bottles actually works really, really well. I'm just going to pour this back in because everything was sanitized. You can get fancy with the pour if you want to. Just don't spill.
Just don't.
Almost. I saved it.
Just fancy schmancy.
Okay. What do we need now?
An airlock.
Okay, this is a bung and airlock. You definitely want to use an airlock. There are a couple different kinds. There's 2-piece, 3-piece. There's this kind like this. They come in glass, they come in plastic. They're all good, they all do the same thing. If you cannot get an airlock, you can use what's called a blow-off. We actually have a video on that, and it's just a piece of tubing stuck into the bung that goes into like a mason jar filled with sanitizer fluid. It's still an airlock, technically, but we just call it a blow-off because that way it differentiates it from the little ones. But the reason you use one is because it keeps bugs out and it lets the gases escape. If you were to just screw a cap right on this, this will explode. Not good.
Because part of the fermentation process is producing gases.
Yes.
The gases will build up in pressure in here until blammo.
Boom. Yeah.
But this allows the gases to escape, but no bugs to get in.
Right. So what'll happen is, as this starts to ferment, you'll see bubbles come up the side. You might see a little bit of foam. You might even get foam up into it. If that happens, clean out your airlock, replace it. It's all good. It's okay. If it gets too aggressive, use a blow-off tube, like I said. But what'll happen is, gases will go up this side of this and push this side down and force this side up and then start bubbling through. So one side will be empty, the other side will be full. That's normal. That's the way it's supposed to work. It's kind of like the trap in your sink, only backwards. Yeah, that. Okay, so this is gonna go on a lipped tray, like just a cookie sheet, like a half sheet pan with a little bit of a lip on it, just in case it overflows. It doesn't go everywhere, all over the table, the floor, your cats, whatever. After a few days of that, it's gonna go into our ferment station, where it's gonna stay until I see that it looks like it might be close to being done, when these things are kind of even again, and we'll be back then to show you how it's doing. Okay, it's been 15 days. That's 2 weeks. So it's time to give this a check. Now, this started super low, so I don't expect that it's gonna, have much problem here. Don't prove me wrong, please. It's a little gassy still, so I think it's probably done. It's just letting off its gases, and that's fine. Alrighty. Oh yeah, went totally dry.
It's super gassy.
Very gassy. Now, something about that. If it's really, really gassy, just give it a little bit of a mix to degas, because if it's too gassy, it could throw your reading off. So I'm just, giving it a little pound and a shake here to go away. That's a t-shirt right there.
I don't know if I'm going to put that on the store.
The Pound and shake. 1.000. Okay, let me do something and show you the final ABV that this could potentially have. But before I do that, let me pour this into our pitcher so that Derek doesn't have to stand there holding the thing anymore. And I'm pouring it into the pitcher rather than right back into the container because if I just pour it in there, I'm going to disturb all the leaves and, you know, it's going to get nasty and dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Anyway, so using the calculator the teacher said I would never have handy, we started at 1.034 minus 1.000. Gives us 0.034. Now, I'm going to use 131.25 today instead of 135 because this is lower than, say, 7 or 8%. Times 131.25 gives us 4.46% plus about 0.5%. It's like 0.55% from carbonation, which we'll get to in just a minute. So plus 0.55 gives us 5%, 5.01%. I'm calling that 5. Which is right on par with most of your store-bought seltzers. They range anywhere from 4 to 5.5 or something like that. So the next step is we need to rack this to a pitcher.
But you're going to write down the 5%.
So we are going to rack it, and that just means moving it from one vessel to another. We're moving it to a pitcher because we do have some stuff to mix into this before it goes into bottles. For racking, I like to use an auto siphon. You can use just a racking cane. It's a lot more complicated. You have to have really good dexterity and timing and probably 6 hands. With this, I only need 4, sometimes only 2. So I'm going to leave the cap on because there is lees, which is the sediment in the bottom of here. I'm just going to go about halfway down, trying to avoid the sides. There's a bunch of lees all along the top here too, which is actually called croissant. Don't ask me why it's called a different thing when it's at the top versus the bottom. I don't know. I don't write the rules. I don't make up the names. And we want to just get it going. And I'm going to keep it off the bottom as much as I can until we get really close to the bottom. Then I'm going to tip that bottle back a little bit. The trick is your source needs to be higher than your destination. The more difference in height, the faster it will go, by the way. This is not optimal. We could have that one like a lot lower, but you know, we're trying to show you guys on camera, so gotta have something. So after racking, there's always a little bit of waste. But do you really want to drink that anyway? I mean, it's kind of gross looking. Sure, you could put that in the fridge and let it settle out, and you can try putting it through a filter of some kind if you really want to. It's literally a couple ounces. It's not a big deal. Because our yield for this was actually 122 ounces, which is really, really close to a full gallon in a 1-gallon starting container. So not a lot of loss at all. All right, but the next step, in order for this to carbonate, because it did go dry, it's totally done. In order to carbonate, it needs more sugars. So what we're gonna do, we have some plain white sugar, 42 grams, which is 1.5 ounces. Makes it really, really simple. And I'm just going to add that directly to here. Because what happened is it went dry to 1.000. Yeah, see, it's a little gassy.
Manipulation sites
Yeah.
in action.
It went dry because there was no more sugar, okay? So once the yeast do that, they start to go dormant. Well, by adding more sugar to it, we can get them up and active again. And what's going to happen is they're going to make a little bit of CO2 and a little bit more alcohol. Remember that 0.55% of alcohol, but they're going to make the CO2. And because the bottle's going to be closed off, it's going to be contained in the bottle, making carbonation. But what you really want to do is make sure this is mixed thoroughly. A lot of people like to just put a little bit of sugar into each bottle. I don't recommend it, but it is a tried and true method. People have been doing it for a long time. The difference is you're going to get a little bit different in each bottle. Sometimes you might have too much, sometimes not enough. So I like to just mix it through, and then we have it as homogeneous through the entire mixture. I used to say homogeneous all the time, and it was the wrong word. So what I'm doing is letting it sit for a second, and I'm checking the bottom and scraping to see if it dissolved. I don't hear any sugar in the bottom. So that means it is fully dissolved. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bottle. And for that, we're going to, can you just grab one of the bottles?
Oh, sure.
For bottling for this, we're going to be using 750 ml, basically wine bottle size swing tops. So they're made to hold carbonation. And it's the same thing as racking, but we're going to add this to the end of our auto siphon. This is a bottling wand. It has the springy thingy, also known as a stem valve in the end. And when you push it down into the bottle, it lets the liquid flow. When you lift it up, it stops. So you can very easily go through bottle to bottle without spilling it all over the place. This costs like $7 or $8. Okay, they're super, super cheap, really effective thing to have. And we just attach it to the hose and detach it as we need to. So you don't even need a new auto siphon to do it. But it's going to take us a little time to do this, so we're going to do it off camera, and we'll be back in a second to show you. Okay, so we have our bottles. We have 4 750 ml swing tops, and we have this one. This is a clear plastic bottle that we use as our carbonation test. We also happen to just have enough to fill an extra bottle. So we thought, yeah, you know what, let's do it this way. More on this one in a bit, but this is our carbonation test bottle. That's important to know.
Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Brian, Derica, this is a really boring beverage, and you are right.
Yeah.
We have the carbonation potential. We have the alcohol, low ABV potential. Well, actually, it's not even potential.
Yeah.
But where's the flavor?
Exactly. Right now it's just plain old seltzer with alcohol in it, which some people might like, but we're about to kick it up a notch. So we have these lovely flavorings from Olive Nation. And I thought, you know, this is like the perfect time to try to use those because we can add a lot of flavor without adding a lot of complexity or sugars or anything else that makes this harder to do.
You also may have noticed that we added sugar for carbonation, but we didn't add sugar for sweetness. And that's because we want to keep this dry so that it's replicating one of those
seltzers.
hard
Like a White
seltzers.
Claw or something. Yeah. They're always dry. And they're dry probably on purpose because it's much easier to make that way.
So our flavors of choice are pineapple, mango, watermelon, peach, and coconut.
Now, what I did is I know that it's roughly an ounce of extract per gallon. So basically it divides between about 4 to 5. So there's 30 milliliters in an ounce. So divide that by, say, 4, and we get about 7 milliliters per. This one gets 7 as well. So it's a little bit over, but hey, a little extra flavor never hurt anybody. So let's start with this one.
All right. So you need your...
Yeah, we said coconut.
Right. So this, if you didn't know what that was...
Let me explain after I put the flavor in.
Okay.
Don't worry. I'll tell you what this is all about. There's reasons.
I'm going to shake it just in case there's any need for that. I don't know.
And I'm really simple. I'm just going to put 7 milliliters of flavoring into it. We have an eyedropper that holds...
It's a graduated eyedropper, and that's what my symbol was. It was for the graduated eyedropper.
It holds 1, like it holds 2, but the cap doesn't let it go that high. So this is going to take a while. 3/4, 1.5, 1/4, 3. So this one I did 6.75 mils. It's kind of a boring thing to watch me do that, so we're not going to show you every single time. But let me explain what this one's all about. So this is our carbonation test bottle. We have on it a cap just like you would use for kegging. Then we have this device. Now this device has a pressure gauge on it and a cap that goes here and a regulator valve. Okay, so this is actually used for carbonating using CO2, but we're going to use it a little bit of a different way. I'm going to pop this on here, and what's going to happen is if I have this turned all the way down, meaning it won't release any gas, now it's a sealed system. A pressure gauge that goes up to 60 psi will show us as it carbonates. And at some point, it's going to stop going up, and then we know these are carbonated and ready to consume. You don't need this. This is just a nice, like, lets you have an idea of what's happening inside the bottle kind of thing.
We're looking for a PSI range of 25 to 30. That is our ideal carbonation level.
Yep.
But we're going to keep this out and keep a close eye on it because it seems like in our experience with carbonation naturally that it takes a while to get going, but then once it starts getting going, it could just boop, get right up there.
Now, this isn't so much for safety. Sometimes we do this for safety so that we can keep things sweet. In this case, these aren't going to get pasteurized. You would just chill it as you want to when you're ready to drink one. They are shelf stable from this point forward, just so you understand.
This is simply to let us know that yes,
they're
they
done.
Actually carbonated.
All right, so I'm going to set this off to this. Oh, no, you need that. Okay. I'll start adding the next one, but I need this rinsed out.
The reason why I'm putting our fancy masking tape labels on these now is because each one is going to be flavored differently. And we need to mark that.
Now, of course, we're using different ones for each bottle, but if you had one flavoring that you like, you can easily just put 1 ounce into the pitcher along with your sugars, mix that through, fill your bottles, and you're good to go. The next one is watermelon. We get asked for watermelon stuff all the time, and the reason why we haven't done a watermelon wine yet is because watermelon tends to spoil before it ferments. We are planning to do one at some point, we just haven't set it up yet. Put about 7, because this This dropper just isn't working as well as I wanted to, but it's what we got with a measurement on it, so I'm going with it. So about 7 mils on this one. Not crucial. I mean, 7, 6, 8. I don't think it's going to make that much difference. Watermelon.
Watermelon.
Next one's going to be pineapple. Then we're going to do a peach, and we're going to do a mango. I'm just going to do all of those because it's the same story for all of them. We'll be back when they're all done. All right, our bottles are all done. They're labeled. 5 different flavors. We're going to put these in our bomb shelter, which is really just a tub from Lowe's. That way, if anything goes untoward or one of the bottles just has a crack that we didn't see and starts to explode, we don't have to worry about glass shards going everywhere, and it contains the mess as well because, you know, that's dangerous and messy. So in a couple weeks, probably once these are all done, we'll be back to give you a tasting. Okay, it's been 9 days since we bought these, and
If you are familiar with our other natural carbonation videos, you may have noticed that we didn't use our insurance yeast in this one.
yep, and I'm regretting it already. See, that's the thing about insurance. You never know you need it until you needed it. Now, in this case, it went to about 10 psi. There's a slight amount of pressure on the bottle, so there is some carbonation. This note is just totally on my way. So there is some amount of carbonation, but not a tremendous amount, as we're going to find out really, really soon.
It's been sitting at 10 psi for
Several days.
Yeah.
It's not going up at all, so it's done.
So we talked about this off screen, and we thought, well, could we put our insurance yeast in now? Well, yes, we could, but
We'll lose everything that we built
opening
up.
that, we're going to release our.
And when you drop it in, it's going to create nucleation sites and possibly fizz out all over the place.
Also, we don't know how much of the sugar has already been used, so would we have to add more sugar too?
No.
It's very
No, the
complicated.
sugar that has been used is what's been used. That's the idea. We only want a specific amount of sugar to be fermented up. Oh, you're saying because some of the carbonation would be
Yes,
gone. Yeah,
yes.
see, there's a lot of variables here.
Yes.
So instead, we opted to just, you know what? It's fine. Because this bottle is also not totally full. So it's entirely possible that because of compressibility, there's a lot of things at work here. So we thought, you know what? We'll just show what it's like when you don't have full carbonation, or maybe you do. So we took one of the other bottles. This happens to be the pineapple, and we put it in the fridge and let it get cold. And now we're going to open it. Oh,
Ooh. It's in the splash zone.
it's got a little bit. Okay, right off the bat, there was a pop.
There's a pop, and I was in the splash zone, so I got spritzed. So maybe this isn't a seltzer, maybe this is a spritzer.
Now, I don't think we're going to do a score on this one. I
No.
don't think this one needs a score. This is super simple. We also did different flavors. So which flavor do you judge, that kind of thing. So we're not going to do that. Instead, we're just going to go off the basics. It is super crystal, perfectly clear.
And this is one of the reasons why Brian didn't want to add the insurance yeast, because he noticed, particularly in our poor man's champagne, the insurance yeast kind of made it messy.
Yeah.
But regardless, it is a mini fermentation, and so there's going to be sediment on the bottom no matter how stingy you are about adding things to it. So I would say absolutely use the insurance yeast.
Yeah.
And I'm going to.
There's a little bit of sweetness in this still, which tells me that it didn't carbonate out fully, which means probably best to leave these. Well, actually, this can sit out. It doesn't matter because there's only enough sugars there to carbonate the whole thing.
I'm enjoying the little bit of sweetness.
Yeah, the sweetness is great. The flavor on this is actually really nice. The pineapple flavor, maybe even a little strong, like a little too much pineapple. So we could probably have used less of the extract. Is my point.
It's interesting. Up front, it's kind of shockingly good. I don't know if that's appropriate verbiage, but that's what I'm going to use. And it's not till
There's
the
almost an aftertaste.
very end that
Yeah,
there's.
and that's extracts do that.
But it's almost reminiscent of youth.
Oh, it could be too. Yeah, I mean, keep in mind this is a kilju, so
Yeah.
it's just a flavored kilju. Is all it really is, with a little bit of carbonation. I'm not getting much carbonation.
For those of you not familiar with kilju, kilju is a Finnish drink that was popular among the college youth, if you will.
Yeah.
Basically, it was a cheap way to just ferment a sugar wash into something alcoholic.
Yep.
So it was
We
never,
did it with a really low version.
It was never really intended to be good, and so we were just using that as a base to hopefully make something that was good. And this actually tastes, as I said, up
This is
front,
great.
shockingly
This
delightful.
is 5% too. You would not know there's alcohol in this. It tastes like you're drinking a lightly watered down fruit juice.
It reminds me a lot of dare I say, White Claw.
Yeah,
And
it really does.
those other beverages.
More flavor, actually. More flavor
Yeah,
than a White Claw.
more flavor. So for what our intent was, I would say we were 100% successful in making
Absolutely.
what we were setting out to make.
Had we used insurance yeast, this would have totally carbonated
Yeah.
and been fine. So
Yeah.
when you make this at home, add just a few sprinkles of insurance yeast. That's really what we do. Is just a couple sprinkles in each bottle.
Yep.
And it'll totally carbonate.
Yeah, and if you are still confused about what insurance yeast is, go watch like the Shandy video or the ginger hydromel. Both of those were naturally carbonated.
Both of those
with
we did insurance yeast. Why didn't we put insurance yeast in this one? Because I wanted it to remain nice and clear and not have extra stuff in the bottom. Just because, and you know, to change it up. And of course, the one time I want to change it up is the one time it doesn't work. But it did a little bit.
It did. It did.
Yeah.
You could definitely tell by the pop, right? And the spray zone.
I mean, I'm not going to put a score on this because it's just not fair. Like we said, there's too many flavors. But this particular one, I would put this very much in the 7 to 9 range as far as flavors.
Repeatability, I would say, is very
Easy.
high. The color, beautiful, perfect, very high. Aroma,
Smells
lovely.
great.
Smells like pineapple.
Taste is really, really good.
Intent is very high. So
I think in time this will even taste better too.
I think one of the reasons why Brian doesn't want to score this is because there's nothing we can knock it. So it would be artificially high,
Except for the carbonation,
except for the carbonation.
which that would fall under intent as well.
True.
So, yeah. But anyway, this is just meant to be a super simple recipe for the summer. If we had more time, what I would do is take the bottles like we have and put each of these into that plastic bottle with a carbonation cap and add the CO2 and force carb, which we might do that with one bottle and then come back and show you guys. But we wanted to finish this video and get it out to you so that you can still use it because it is July and it takes a couple weeks.
Spoilers, we're not going to be doing that because I love this and I'm going to drink it all.
All right, so there will be none left. So therefore, we won't be doing a follow-up. I stand corrected. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching and have a great day.
Bye-bye.